there, I'm Gianna from Family Fun Twin Cities, and this is the Let's Go Do Fun Stuff show.
How many instruments do you think there are here
In the entire,
in this building?
I would say there are probably 500, maybe even a little more.
I mean, this is probably it.
This is around 300 right here.
300.
Yep, close to 300. So I think if you add all of our keyboard instruments and other things hanging on the wall, you're definitely up to 500 and more.
The Schubert Museum of Music is a treasure trove tucked away in the middle of the city of St. Paul. Omri, Kate Cooper, the museum director, and I explored the exhibits together. We had a really amazing time. Learn about what you can discover in my new favorite museum. This is part 2 of a 2-part series. Make sure you go back and listen to part 1, where we tour all over the museum. Subscribe to our show so you don't miss anything we have discovered.
How long have you worked here?
I have been here 12 years, and I used to work for the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra, which is kind of a partner of Schubert Club. So in a similar job, just not a museum.
Yeah. What is the history of this museum?
So there was an artistic director that was part of Schubert Club for over 40 years. His name was Bruce Carlson. And back in the 1970s, someone presented him with one keyboard instrument that was from the 1800s. And it had a really interesting story that went along with it. And he was kind of fascinated with that. And then he put that on display, and suddenly a second instrument came and a third. And it reached a point that it became a collection. So he decided to start the Schubert Club Music Museum. And these instruments, which are not keyboard instruments, there was a collector in the Twin Cities named Bill Kugler, and he would perform on cruise ships around the world. And every time he went on a cruise, he would bring a gift back for Bruce Carlson. And so we started to collect all of these other interesting instruments.
What is your role in this museum?
So I am both the education director and the museum director. So I'm in charge in the museum of creating exhibits that have educational content. And I take care of the museum. So any new collecting that is done, maintenance, making sure everything works, having a good group of museum guides to give tours. But I also am the education director for our organization. So I do plan a lot of school concerts, and we have a music competition here. So I have a lot of other things that aren't directly related to the museum.
Yeah. And then how many people come a day? Like, how busy do you get?
We have, I think this last year we had about 8,000 visitors over the year.
Wow.
Days kind of vary. On a Sunday when there's a lot of things going on, like right now the Winter Carnival is happening, we may have 200-300 people come in one day. But I would say during the week when it's quieter, we're happy if we see 20 to 30 people visit.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how Schubert Club got its name? Why is it Schubert? Why isn't it Mozart? Any ideas?
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, Schubert Club just celebrated their 140th anniversary.
Wow.
So we came as a musical organization back in 1882, and it was started by a group of women in the Twin Cities. One of them was related to the governor, Alexander Ramsey, at the time. And they formed their own group. It was called the Ladies Musicale. And they formed a group that they could gather together and just really enjoy and appreciate classical music. At the time, the Schubert song cycle was very popular. That was one of their favorites. And so that is why they changed it from the Ladies Musicale to the Schubert Club.
You pick your favorite. Okay, and then talk to me about Family Jam and Kids Jam. Tell me about those programs.
I am really excited about 2 really fabulous programs that we have at the Schubert Club called Family Jam and Kids Jam. Kids Jam started back in 2014 And it was just an idea I had one day when somebody called and said, I was reading your website and it says you have a play, listen, learn, and create program. And I didn't know what she was talking about. And I realized that I had put something on the website that come to our museum so you can play, listen, learn, and create with music. So I thought, well, why don't we make a program? So I created a program that we would bring diverse musicians from around the Twin Cities to do a program for families and kids. They would come in, they would play, kids listen, they would learn about their cultures, learn about the instruments, and then they create something before they go home, and most times it's an instrument. And so they're able to create the instrument and then play along with the musicians. And that's how Kids Jam started. And it ended up that we were presenting Kids Jam during the week. And so our audience obviously weren't kids that are in public schools. Our audience became homeschool families.
Mm-hmm.
And in this last year, we thought we want to give an opportunity for other kids and families to attend. So we basically started Family Jam. It's just a year old. It's a similar concept to Kids Jam, but it's for families. It's on a Saturday, and we incorporate more of a museum experience. So after they have their concert, they come down to this great museum and they get to meet the actual musicians in the museum and maybe try their instruments, see them play it up close. And then they also make a musical instrument down here.
Oh, that's so exciting. And that the plan is to continue moving forward.
Yes. Family Jam ended up being very successful, and we want to keep going with that. And Kids Jam has a history already.
Oh, that's good. Family Jam, is it every 2 months or is it every month? Now
it's 4 times a year.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't always end up being exactly monthly.
Right.
But it's 4 Saturdays over the season.
And you have to register because it's free, but you have to register because it'll fill up.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. One of the primary instruments that Schubert Club has collected over the years are keyboard instruments, pianos, organs. So we, of course, wanted to have another section in this side of the museum where you can actually sit down and play a keyboard instrument. And so my goal was to have everybody think about the fact that music is made on all of these by pushing a key, but the actual sound is produced in many, many different ways. It could be a hammer hitting the string. It could be air blowing through, in the case of an organ, a reed. Or there might be a metal bar, so it sounds more like bells. So as we go through this section, you get to see every single kind of keyboard instrument, and then listen to it and try playing it and hear how the sound is different on all of them. So we start with the kind of what everybody's familiar with, and it's a really fun opportunity for someone to actually sit down and be able to play a Steinway piano. So as we come into here, we have a little bit of an explanation of the different ways that sound is produced after you strike the key. So they all start with a key.
Okay.
And so there you get to see kind of an up-close scientific explanation, but then you can have a field day. You get everything from being able to sit down and play a reed organ, which
my grandma had one of these.
I think everybody usually has a grandma somewhere that had one.
Do you see what she's doing with her feet? You could just you want to breathe for it. Breathe, instrument, breathe.
It's really hard to play because you start to play rhythmically like your foot is, and it just, but they're pretty cool. And again, the sound is produced by air going through reeds inside.
It's breathing. It's literally breathing.
Same concept though. And actually this was made by a company called Esti. I always want to say Etsy. Esti. And they produced child-sized organs that had all of the working components that a full-size organ would have.
About half the size and shorter.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
wow.
These would sell back in the 1920s, 30s for about $25. But it worked like a real organ, so it's pretty cool.
And in today's dollars, it's probably like hundreds or thousands. Probably hundreds.
Yeah, hundreds. Yeah.
Here's an upright.
There's an example of an upright, and we talk about how, you know, those were kind of the thing after the grand piano to put in schools and people's apartments.
They
and
made
so a little
more
bit
sense in the house.
Yes. So everything inside the upright goes this way instead of that way.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yes. This one is really cool. You go ahead and push a couple keys if you want. And there's metal bars inside. And when you're done, I have an example of where people will recognize the sound.
Oh, I know.
So this is called a celesta, and it's actually it is whenever you go to the Nutcracker Suite,
That's what
that
they're
is
playing.
what they are playing.
That's so cool. I always thought it was bells. And that's probably what they use when they need
Exactly.
to.
Exactly. And that's kind of the concept in there. There's just a series of metal rods that are just like a set of bells or a glockenspiel or
Okay, that's so cool.
and then, of course, the whole progression of the the keyboard instruments is the harpsichord was the earliest one, and inside the harpsichord, the strings are plucked, and so you
How
get
are they plucked?
this.
Can we
There's
see?
little, yes. If you can see those little plectra, they're little plastic. They're actually made from
like the
quill
white
of a
pieces
bird.
down there? Okay.
I want to do this without it jumping out, but you'll see how that it's plucking the string.
Oh, neat.
Like the thing on her, but it's not
Right.
And this was actually really these you saw around the time of Beethoven, Mozart. They after the harpsichord came the forte piano, which was a way that a piano could change dynamics. You could play loud and soft.
This
That's
didn't
forte.
really.
No, this is all one.
Is this another pluck
This is
or hammer?
everything that a piano does.
Okay.
So it hammers, but the difference is you have a completely wood frame. Everything inside is all wood, so you don't get that sound like when metal started to be.
Okay.
And usually the keyboards didn't have quite as many keys as a modern piano.
Oh, okay.
It feels different though, doesn't it? It's compared to yep. So and that's why they're called piano fortes, because piano in Italian means soft, forte means loud, and so that was put together saying this is an instrument now you can play loud and soft.
Okay. That makes sense. And then they just shortened it to piano when it became the more modern day version?
Yes.
Okay.
I think they just didn't want to write a word as long.
Yeah.
So, and this is another keyboard instrument that kind of fell a little bit after the harpsichord.
Okay.
It's called a clavichord, and you can barely hear it, right? Ooh, that's a bad key. And all that's happening is there's a little tangent in there and it just hits a string. So you're not getting, first of all, the vibration that you would get in a larger keyboard instrument. Plus, you don't have a big soundboard. They were used, this is a rumor, not so much fact, but when Mozart would travel on his stagecoach, he could take a clavichord with him because he could practice. Or another one that I think is really cute is Bach had 21 children, I think. And he would take this up to his attic and play it at night so he wouldn't wake the kids up.
So that is cute.
Our selfie spot, everyone has to come in and get a
Nice.
So this is an opportunity where visitors can actually sit down and take a few piano lessons. And each one of these stations has kind of a different format, a different level of lessons. So this one was created by a local composer, Ann Rossi is her name, and it's a set of modules. And you can go through them all, and each one is like a 4 or 5 minute lesson. So as you can see, you can spend quite a bit of time. And what she does in hers, and we can't hear it right now, but is she teaches the pianist how to like tell a story on the keyboard without having to read notes.
Oh,
So the younger kids, well, everybody has fun with this because I don't have to read notes to try and do this. And I loved her gloves.
yes. That was brilliant.
So anyway, eventually she will start doing things on the keyboard and you just follow along. So here she's making space sounds on the flat keys, and it sounds like you're traveling in space. And so lots of little stories to tell and ways to make rhythm, and it's a lot of fun. So the other two stations, in this one, we have a true elementary school teacher who taught music in the piano lab. So this is very basic. You're going to learn to do a little bit of note reading and start to put rhythms together. And then the one over here was led by a jazz musician, Mary Louise Knudsen, and she teaches you all of the jazz techniques. So it's a little more complicated, but also a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you to the Schubert Museum for showing us around and letting us learn about Family Jam and Kids Jam. Family Fun Twin Cities provides a weekend family fun guide that divides into regions of the metro. We also have a highly curated calendar of the family fun you can find on any specific day. We have all the links available in the show notes if you are listening to the podcast, or in the description box if you are watching on YouTube. And now it's time to highlight our weekend top 3. This weekend we decided to do a choose your own adventure at an indoor playground, because I wanted to recommend one this weekend in particular, but there are just so many. I remember when there were just 3 or so, and now there are dozens, literal dozens. So take a look at our indoor playgrounds article and determine your top 3 choices and check one of them out. And then on another weekend, you could check another one out. While this winter hasn't felt extremely wintry, it's not exactly summer out there either. So this weekend may be a super fun time to jump into a pool. There are indoor pools and water parks all over the Twin Cities. And just for a heads up, on Sundays from noon until 5, there's free open swim for all ages at Great River Water Park. March is Black History Month. And on Friday, February 23rd, you can attend the Black History Month Showcase. It's happening from 5:30 to 7:30 in Brooklyn Park's Community Activities Center. For $5, dine on soul food and food for the soul, aka music. There will be a vendor fair featuring Black-owned businesses, music, and energy. Lots of energy. And now it's your turn to go do fun stuff.